Doonan. We are here at Daytona International Speedway. Beautiful flags flying, beautiful transporters. I'd say the best part though is what are in those garages. Brand new IMSA GTP hybrid prototypes. First ever in the history of this series that was founded back in 1969 by the France family, John and Peggy Bishop. This is something I'm more excited about than ever. And I also know how much IMSA has meant to you as a kid growing up in the Midwest. I know how much it meant to me. First ever motor race I attended, my father took me to, 1976, IMSA GT. Let's talk about your history with IMSA, your love for it, because that passion has helped create what we have here.
Yeah, I remember vividly, it was February 3rd and 4th, 79.
You remember the day?
I do. The Rolex at the time, the Daytona 24, wasn't on television. And that was the year that CBS was preparing to cover the Daytona 500 for the first time. And it was a cold summer, or a cold winter, February up in Chicago. And they had little highlights because they were just starting to get the cameras in place. And I can tell you at that moment, that's when IMSA captivated me.
Wow.
I'd been around sports car racing like you growing up and had a dad and a grandfather.
Your father was a racer.
That's right. And but that moment, seeing this facility, which I can't believe I'm actually here. This is my 22nd Rolex 24. But I vividly remember the GT cars at the time, of course, the 935 of Interscope Racing won. My previous life, the Mazda RX-7 launched in that race, and I just absolutely fell in love with this form of racing and, dreamed as a boy to be part of it. Now, look at where we're at.
I got the amazing opportunity as a young race car mechanic to work in the IMSA GTP class in 1990. Sorry to date myself, but we had back then amazing efforts from Toyota, Nissan, Porsche, of course, Jaguar, manufacturer rich. Right here we're staring at this glorious Acura ARX 06. Next to it down the row, as we'll walk, we have Cadillac V-LMDhs, BMW M Hybrid V8s, Porsche 963s. This same manufacturer love and passion is being expressed here with them coming into this new hybrid formula. Tell me about that, because you hear from manufacturers in ways that none of us do. There are more coming as well. Lamborghini next year, we hope more.
Yeah.
There's something, pardon the pun, but there is truly something electric going on here in this GTP side of IMSA.
Yeah, and you talked about your first IMSA race. Those some people refer to those as the the golden era of IMSA.
Were.
But I truly with a smile can say I think we've entered now maybe the next step up, which would be the platinum era for me, where we've had a vision by Jim France of having DPIs, and even back to the Daytona prototypes, that Corvette DP started the vision of tying in some design cues from the manufacturers into prototype race cars, such that if you pull a road car up next to one of these, it looks the brand. And for me, these cars are the ultimate expression of an Acura, a BMW, a Cadillac, and a Porsche, and soon to be Lamborghini, as you said. So I got chills, frankly, thinking about what has transpired since in 2020, right here in the infield. We announced convergence, and now 3 years later we're here, we're launching it, we're kicking off what I think is truly a remarkable time for endurance sports car racing, and primarily for the fans. They're the biggest beneficiaries of the whole thing.
GTP, Grand Touring Prototype, possibly my favorite acronym in motor racing, one that made me sad when it went away. You and I discussed offline for quite some time as this new formula was being crafted. What should it be called? You told me to stop calling, stop texting, stop bothering me, Pruett, about GTP. I can't tell you how happy I was to see there was that decision within IMSA to bring back this iconic name. How did that happen?
Well, clearly it's a pinnacle part of our history, but it was a relatively easy conversation with Jim France, Ed Bennett. Look, these new cars do exactly what GTP did then. They tie to the brands, and especially with the opening up of the design cues a little further than DPI did, now these cars truly look like somewhat of a GT car. Clearly they're prototypes, but the manufacturers remember that time when you just talked about all those manufacturers that have participated back in the 80s and 90s, and now they I think have tied the idea that these cars harken back to that, but we're going to write a whole bunch of new chapters in the IMSA history books.
Let's talk about the hybrid side. Let's talk about the technology side, even the fuel side. VP Racing, new R80 fuel, 80% biorenewable. 64% of that 80% is the latest Gen 2 renewable biofuel. Obviously with the energy storage systems made by WAE Technologies, the batteries that pack a really big punch, Bosch with the motor generator unit. These aren't our fathers and grandfathers prototypes. These are as cutting edge as they get. Tell me about that side, the importance you've heard from the manufacturers saying, really, this is one of the major reasons we're coming in or staying in. I
was joking with Phil Banks from the Ganassi team that we raced 747s before, and now we're racing space shuttles. These are complicated race cars, but they are on a stage that IMSA wants to be. That is, you mentioned the fuel, you mentioned the hybrid technology, you mentioned reduced tire allocations because Michelin has been able to come with a double stint tire. You couple all those things together, and we as a championship, as a sanctioning body, and certainly as a top category, are now the most sustainable form of racing in North America. And we're thrilled to have a true partnership with the EPA and the DOE and the Society of Automotive Engineers that measures that. And so extended stint length because of the hybrid system you mentioned, reduces fuel usage, and then it'll be interesting to see how those tires go during the night, maybe even a triple stint on what is supposed to be a double stint tire.
And you're not mentioning PR talking points when you talk about innovation, sustainability. This is something that really is at the core of this formula that you've created. Speaking about all the new stuff from the prototype side, which is a huge passion, also over here we see Porsche's brand new 992 generation 911 GT3R in all of its German splendor. On top of everything that's new in the prototype classes, we also have new vehicles, some new activation coming from Ford on the GT front. We got the Grand Touring prototypes. Grand Touring also has some amazing things happening too.
You know, as our fans walk in, they can look at the GTP cars as what's possible.
And should we mention that for the first time, Daytona International Speedway and IMSA have said if you are buying a general admission ticket, for the first time ever,
be in the garage area.
In the garage.
Yeah,
that's never happened before. So all of IMSA's fans are going to get to see these cars up close like never before.
Yeah, and based on what we saw at the Roar, the crowd was insane, and then I suspect the same for the rest of the week here. But the GTP cars, as those fans walk in, they, I think, show what's possible, what the future might look like, whether it's the future of something that's being developed for a road car or the future of our sport.
Perfect example here with the Corvette C8R.
Yeah, but for me also, they come in and they see what is today in the GTD category. They see the new Porsche 911 GT3R, they see the new Ferrari 296,
beautiful.
They see the new Lamborghini, and the opportunity for them to come in and see both of those things and see a car that absolutely is relevant to what they're seeing in the showroom or what is on their dream list of cars or what they aspire to. That's what the mix of multi-class racing, prototypes and GT cars, I know gets you and I so excited from our childhood, because that's what it was. I mean, your first IMSA race was all GT cars. There wasn't a prototype. You know, I transitioned to some GT cars and then the advent of GTP in 1981. So the two mixed together, obviously the racing that it creates with closing speeds and and passing in the infield, it's hard to describe unless you watch it on NBC or get here to the track and see it in person.
Two things left to cover off, John. So we have all this amazing energy, all the newness with GTP, the GT models that you mentioned. We also have a really hearty and thriving, growing Pro-Am level where we have the LMP2 cars, the LMP3 cars as well. Big fields, big interest, the most accessible side, entry points into the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Those areas are genuinely flourishing as well. Two-time IndyCar champion Joseph Newgarden, Scott McLaughlin, Team Penske, young Indy NXT driver Kiffin Simpson, John Ferrano, veteran businessman and champion. Run down the list, Ben Keating. This is a place where it seems like if I'm looking for areas to criticize, I'm struggling, and that's a good thing.
Well, when Bill France Sr. and John Bishop founded IMSA, they did so on a set of core values, and that was that individuals like John Ferrano or Bob Aiken in the day, or Ben Keating or Jim Truman
Bobby
in the day,
run down the list.
They can come racing with IMSA and know that they have a place. And obviously we only have so many garage spaces which we filled. We only have so many pit lane spaces which we filled.
You've got 61 cars, Doonan. How many more do you want?
But there is an opportunity for drivers like those, teams like their teams, to come and participate at the highest levels of the sport at a level that makes sense for them, from an entry point to of Michelin Pilot Challenge or our new VP Racing Sports Car Challenge. It's going to be a proving ground for the next generation of teams in the WeatherTech Championship. So.
And we even have fun, like in the rules, you encourage putting googly eyes on the front of your P2 cars. Why don't we close on this, John? And this is just speaking with complete honesty. The energy in the IMSA GTP class back in the late 80s, well, throughout the 80s, but late 80s, early 90s in particular, unlike anything I've ever experienced. Probably my favorite year of racing I've ever been involved in. I haven't felt that energy in a long time. It's back, truly back. Can you tell us what you're hearing from your teams? Roger Penske is here, Chip Ganassi, Bobby Rahal, Michael Andretti. Big names are getting involved in this series if they weren't already. Manufacturers jumping in that, again, have said this is where we want to invest ourselves. Tell me what you're hearing from them about this new dawn, because I gotta believe we're all feeling the same thing.
Yeah, there's certainly the team owners to have those names in IMSA, pillars in our sport, people that have written history books for years and years. That's tremendous, but I think even deeper is the pulse among the mechanics, engineers. So many of the drivers have come up to me and said, there is nothing like this in the world right now. And that type of energy.
And they also ask you for an extra parking pass too, probably.
Yeah,
but
for sure,
okay.
for sure that. But that kind of energy for our sport really makes me happy. It makes me happy for all those who have invested in being here from the manufacturers, 18 of them in IMSA, which is
ridiculous.
So mega. And then of course, a brand like WeatherTech, a brand like Michelin that are so pillar to us, VP Racing Fuels, all the folks that are investing, how awesome to have them feel that same energy, that they know that this is a place that provides awesome business opportunities, awesome marketing opportunities. But I go back to John Bishop and Bill France. They wanted IMSA to be different. And I think the drivers, the teams, all the partners that come here are now experiencing what I would say is the IMSA difference. Race hard on track, go over to the Apex Pavilion and have a meal together and celebrate, the common passion. And no matter what brand is on anybody's shirt, they're all here for the same reason, and that is absolute passion for endurance sports car racing. And I think we're going to put on an amazing show this week.
I think they also know IMSA's biggest fan also happens to be its president, and that makes a difference as well. John Doonan, thanks for taking a little walk for us here.
Thank you.